Will it be Kansas State back to the Big 12 championship game this year? I'm going to have to be talked out of that. And I have Christian Rauh of Locked On Kansas State here. I don't think he's the best guy to talk me out of it necessarily. I'm going through the schedule, getting ready for the show, Christian, and I just didn't see a lot of losses on there. I feel like I need you to give me some Kansas State fan horror stories so that I can be reminded of what they, have failed to accomplish in the past. Because I just kept going through, and I just kept going, win. You're going to split with those two. Win. There's maybe a lot. Like, I landed 10-2, and depending on where those losses show up at, that may or may not put Kansas State in the Big 12 championship game. But I like them over Iowa State in the first major game of the year on August 23rd. Less than a month away, might I add, which is very exciting. I think they win that. I think they lose to Texas Tech. I think they lose at Utah. And overall, my split games are Texas Tech and Iowa State, who are two conference contenders this year. And Kansas State is a conference contender. So I'll take them over 8.5, their win total, according to our friends at FanDuel. I land on 10-2. How do you feel about that?
Well, full caveat here, I guess I should say that is my prediction as well in 10-2. I do have a little bit of losses here, but I am more than okay with rolling up the sleeves here and playing a little bit of devil's advocate. At 10-2, I think that is realistic. And if you are 10-2, meaning 7-2 in the conference, that should be good enough to get you to Arlington. And it would be the first time for Kansas State since 2022 to do so. When you look at some of these other teams that have the potential to make it to Arlington, like for the example, Iowa State and Arizona State. There was a really interesting stat that came up just a
Texas
few days
Tech.
ago.
We're not forgetting Texas Tech on this program.
Correct, but hold on for this narrative here. Iowa State and Arizona State were in the championship game last year. If you take out the Oklahomas and the Texases, who are now in the SEC, only Colorado back in 2004, 2005 are the ones who went back-to-back in the Big 12 championship, at least appearances. Haven't had anybody since then make a back-to-back Big 12 appearance that is not in Oklahoma or Texas. So if you want to continue that narrative, Arizona State, Iowa State out the window. But hey, Iowa State, Kansas State lost to them last year. That is the only team on the schedule that Kansas State lost to last year that is still on the schedule. They also lost to Houston, not on the schedule this year. They lost to BYU, not on the schedule this year. I don't know if I'm helping you out here, but when it comes to the week 0, I will say I think that one's a coin flip, Spencer. I truly do. You think they can get the upper edge? I'm with you. I think Avery Johnson has a lot of weapons. I'm super excited about that offense this year, but I do call that one a coin flip. You think Texas Tech is the game that they lose to go for 2 losses, including Utah. I'm agreeing with you on the Utah side. Don't like that away back-to-back in Stillwater and then in Salt Lake City. Don't really like that whatsoever. If you want to play some horror stories of Kansas State, they're so bad in Stillwater. They're terrible in Stillwater. And you can't tell me that Mike Gundy's going to be 0-9 in the conference again.
No,
I think
he's not.
An opportunity when you can go towards the end of the season there, and he's battling for potentially getting his 6th win or staying alive to get his 6th win. Once he hits that 7th loss, he might be out the door. So that could be a really scary game for Kansas State.
You know the interesting thing about Farmageddon in week 0 on August 23rd, which is being played in Ireland for reasons nobody fully understands or gets. Oh, I haven't sounded off on this yet. I need to. How about Michigan and Western Michigan playing in Germany next year? Who asked for that? Who benefits? Who thought that was a good idea? Who? What? I rail against scheduling a lot on this program. That might be the dumbest thing. If you're trying, even if I agreed with the premise, which I don't, that you should try to extend college football to Europe. You're going to show that Michigan trouncing Western Michigan? What are you doing? They're 90 minutes apart. I'd rather see Michigan go to Western Michigan's campus and see them try to pull an Appalachian State upset. The dumbest thing. Sorry, let's get back to Kansas State. That's why I brought you on the show. I hadn't sounded off on that complete and utter absurdity. Oh, gosh, it's just drives me insane. So that Kansas State-Iowa State game is going to be our first taste of college football. That's a conference game. Unfortunately for Kansas State, though, at Arizona is not. That's a bottom-tier Big 12 team to me. Maybe Coach Brennan gets them going and has a bit of a resurgence. I'm not optimistic. They lost more guys to the portal. No Tetaroa McMillan. I know Fafita's still there, but the last year was just that was tough. So that doesn't count. That game doesn't do anything for Kansas State other than don't get upset when you go to Tucson. I've seen crazy things happen. I'm a Pac-12 guy, RIP, my whole life. I've seen crazy things happen in Tucson. So let's not completely disrespect the other Wildcats here. But that Iowa State game, I've got coaches with well-established cultures and program identities. I have got veteran quarterbacks who I maybe have more questions about Avery Johnson than Rocco Becht from a pure passing standpoint. I think that's fair. But do I like Avery Johnson? I do. And I am bullish on that Kansas State run game, man. I think when you've got a guy like Avery Johnson, and I'm blanking on his name, the former guy from Dylan Edwards from Colorado, still back there. Those are playmakers, man. Normally you lose a guy like DJ Giddens, and I think I don't know if that running game is going to be the same. And I'm not saying you are happy to lose DJ Giddens, but I'm just not as concerned about. I think this is going to be a phenomenal football game, and I think between that, a neutral site, Texas Tech at home, I think that's a split. If you told me they lose to Iowa State by 3 to 10 points and they beat Texas Tech by 3 to 10 points, I can see all of that happening.
Yeah, for some reason, I continue to keep looking at the Baylor game too. I think the Baylor game in Waco just makes me nervous. I know that there's, I'm iffy on Baylor, right? Back and forth, and then there's the TCU aspect of things too. Who knows what Sonny Dykes is going to do? Josh Hoover threw for almost 4,000 yards last year. I have this weird feeling that Sonny Dykes is like in this kind of hot seat-ish, but at the same time, he was also 8-4, just like Kansas State last year. So
big Josh Hoover fan over here.
Yeah, Hoover's great. There's a weird dynamic to TCU in my mind, and you got to play them in the middle of the season. So to me, I think the floor is 8-4 again for Kansas State, but I think the ceiling, it could be as well as 12-0, 11-1, but I do think 10-2 is the number for Kansas State. I go with Baylor and Utah as my losses. I think they can get past Texas Tech. I think they can get past Iowa State as well. It wouldn't shock me if one of those other ones fell and they wound up winning another one. But 10-2 is that number I give you. And for the record, with the whole Germany thing with Michigan, Western Michigan, the only reason I'm excited about Kansas State and Iowa State playing in playing in Dublin is because it's good for the Big 12 brand. I don't understand what it's good for the two Michigan schools.
Is the financial outlook of the Big 12 going to radically change because of fans in Ireland?
No, but I like what Brett Yormark is doing for the brand. Just little small things every now and again. And you're putting a rivalry game on week 0 where nobody else
taking a rivalry game away from campuses.
I agree with that.
I don't like that. You know, like Florida State, Georgia Tech last year, at least, you know, wasn't some big rivalry game or anything like that. That one, I guess I could kind of get on board with, but college campuses are great, man. Don't take a game away from students. Don't take a game away from donors and fans. Like I'm not a big fan of that. Well, you did talk me off the ledge of jumping to 11-1. I'm going to close with a quick thought on Baylor. I'm not completely down on Baylor. For those on YouTube, these are my Big 12 preseason power rankings. Like, I have Baylor 5th. And I did that because I can't ignore what happened last season and Sawyer Robertson returns. And I absolutely love the coordinator hire they made. And I love that their quarterback is returning and their head coach is back. I think Baylor's a middle of the conference team. Like, as I look at my rankings, Baylor 5, Utah 6, TCU 7. I might put Baylor down to 7. I wouldn't put them below Houston. Houston's got more to prove. I'm pretty bullish on Houston. But, like, Baylor, I can see it being a tough game for Kansas State. I can. I really can. I don't think that is as difficult of a game as Utah and maybe even Texas Tech at home. But hey, I'm like the number outside of Locked On Texas Tech. This is like the number 1 Texas Tech Red Raiders podcast in America, so that's just the way that it goes. I'm going to once again as well, because I love that you mentioned TCU. Big Josh Hoover fan. If you look up at the end of the
your power rankings 1 through 7, I think 1 through 7, honestly, could be in Arlington. Like that's how deep I think this conference is, and I think there's those
I
7
agree.
teams
Yeah,
could be
I agree.
easily in Arlington, and I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever.
I wouldn't be surprised either. And TCU is really interesting, but don't be surprised, everybody, if you look up at the end of the season. Wait, Josh Hoover's the leading passer in the Big 12? Wait, what now? Yeah, just remember, you heard it here first. And Christian Rauh, Locked On Kansas State, and I see the world the same way. 10-2 for Kansas State. We shall find out with tiebreakers galore if that's good enough to get into the Big 12 championship game. That'll do it for today. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. And until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.